This is Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area with the 49ers update after Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media via conference call on Monday afternoon. And the number one thing is the 49ers fears, their suspicions, what they believe to be true was in fact true. Brandon Aiyuk sustained a torn ACL in his left knee, also tore the MCL, the medial collateral ligament. And so he is definitely out for the season. He'll have surgery once the swelling goes down, but yeah, Brandon Aiyuk, after they signed him to the big money contract just before the start of the regular season, his season is now over after 7 games. So that's a huge blow to the 49ers offense. I want to remind you this is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. It's a brewery, it's a beer garden, a restaurant, all wrapped in one in a family-friendly atmosphere in Moraga, California. And that's right down the street from where I live. I often go there. So maybe if you pop in, you'll see me at Canyon Club Brewery. And it's coming soon to a location at the Danville Livery right off of 680. So I'm sure that'll definitely be one of my go-to spots as well. Okay, so in addition to Brandon Aiyuk, the 49ers also have other issues with the wide receiving core. Most notably, Deebo Samuel remains in the hospital due to pneumonia. Now, remember, right about an hour before kickoff, the 49ers announced that Deebo Samuel was dealing with an illness and that he was still expected to play in that game. Turned out he only was on the field for 4 snaps, and the 49ers played most of that game on Sunday. The 49ers 28-18 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs without their top 3 wide receivers. So Deebo Samuel started experiencing issues either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, and he ended up having fluid in his lungs. So he went to the hospital, hospitalized Sunday night. And as of Monday afternoon or evening, he remained in the hospital. No timeline has been given as far as when he's going to be released from the hospital or when he might be able to get back on the practice field or play. So 49ers right now know for sure they won't have Brandon Aiyuk for the remainder of this season. Deebo Samuel is very much in question, I would assume, with the pneumonia as far as being able to play week 8 against the Dallas Cowboys. And then Juwan Jennings, who leads the 49ers in receptions, in receiving yards. He is somebody who is also questionable, or we'll see where this turns out as far as he goes, because he wasn't even able to practice this last week. So the 49ers are hoping he can be back. But again, we shall see. Now, that's not all. Chris Conley has an ankle sprain, and he's day to day. And tight end George Kittle has a foot sprain, and he's day to day as well. Okay, so that leaves open the question, what do the 49ers do? Where can they go from here? And is it possible with the trade deadline coming up that the 49ers could make a deal to bolster their wide receiver room or just their passing game as a whole? And I just don't know that it's real feasible at this point. The 49ers fully expect to get Deebo Samuel back and Juwan Jennings back and Ricky Pearsall. Those are their 3 top receivers. And the reason the 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round was to provide more depth, more route running, the ability to beat man coverage. And so I think they still feel good about their top 3 wide receivers when you think about Samuel, Jennings, and Pearsall. But when asked about the possibility of a trade, what Kyle Shanahan said was that they look into everything regardless. And he goes, but the more issues you have at a position, the more you're going to look into that. But he says it all depends on what the options are and what they can pull off that helps them now and doesn't hurt them for the future. And one of the things he also mentioned was that at times like this, a lot of times you're living in hope that something is going to happen, even though all signs point toward it not happening. He says the answers aren't always out there. You got to be ready to get the people better in your building. If you find something that makes sense, we'll never hesitate, but it's not always available like you'd hope. So, where are the 49ers for the rest of this season? Short term, it certainly doesn't look great. It obviously did not look great on Sunday when the 49ers didn't have their three top receivers out there. But in the future, like I said, Samuel, um, Jennings, Pearsall, Jacob Cowing saw his first real action on offense and looked pretty good, including that screen where he really turned into a runner down by the goal line. Chris Conley's available, and Ronnie Bell would be the other wide receiver on the team's 53-man roster. So the other injury reports are that Christian McCaffrey is progressing. Doesn't look like they're going to open his practice window and designate him for return this week, but they're hoping after the bye week he'll be ready to go. As far as Dre Greenlaw, probably looking at a few weeks after the bye week. Nothing soon on him as far as when he's returning from the Achilles injury. And then Jake Moody, the kicker, they won't get him back until after the bye. So, yeah, the 49ers have a lot of issues to address with their offense, and in particular, I think, with their passing game. Now, Kyle Shanahan was asked about something that I guess was talked about a lot after the game, as far as this conversation he had with Brock Purdy in the locker room. And it sounds to me like a lot was made out of nothing. I certainly have seen Kyle Shanahan in the locker room talk to players. The way it was described, a long conversation, 5 minutes or so, with Purdy, doesn't seem too much out of character. I think Tim Kawakami noted that he had never quite seen anything like that, but I have seen him in the locker room talking to players and quarterbacks. And I think there was one point, I think it was with Brock Purdy, where he pulled up a chair, a stool in the locker room and sat at his locker and talked. That was either last year or maybe the year before. Maybe it was after his first start. But when asked about that on Monday, what Shanahan said was like, it basically, what did he say about it? He said that he likes to talk to his players after the game. He said, we were talking like we always do. I didn't realize all you guys were standing behind us, meaning the media. All you guys were standing behind us, spying on us. And then he kind of chuckled when he said that. But he said, I love talking to guys after the game. We were just hanging out, talking about the game and stuff. It's what we do. We talk. And when asked, my colleague Jennifer Lee Chan asked him about, how Brock is seeing the game and what the coaching points were. He went into detail about, basically there's coaching points on every play. There's always something for any player on every play that they're on. And so he said that, in relation to the three interceptions that Purdy had, he said he knows that Brock would like to have those back. And there was obviously certain things that he could have done on each of those, but it's all part of the learning process. He did note that Brock Purdy is having a hell of a year. And obviously, no one's confidence is wavering when it comes to Brock Purdy coming off of the fantastic season he had a year ago. And so, as I mentioned on my previous video, Kyle Shanahan is, I think, the right coach for Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is the right quarterback for Kyle Shanahan. And the 49ers offense still is among the highest rated offenses in the NFL, despite their issues. So we'll see where this thing goes, but certainly not a great time for the 49ers as they fall to 3-4 on the year. Issues across the board, no question about that, have not played well. And, is time running out on them getting their act together and making a push for the playoffs? I wouldn't go that far, but the longer this goes on with the team, winning one, losing two, winning one, they still haven't put together back-to-back wins this season. And that is very much alarming. But, in listening to guys talking to people in the locker room, it doesn't seem like anybody's ready to push the panic button. Though I will say that, Nick Bosa and others who spoke after the game seemed a lot more downcast than they had been. I think a lot of that had to do with they just thought that they'd be able to put up a better fight against the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that broke their heart last year. Many of these players on the 49ers were around back in Super Bowl 54 when the Chiefs made the plays and the 49ers didn't to win that game as well. So that's the roundup of 49ers coming off that loss to Kansas City and searching for answers as they try to right the ship. Thanks for subscribing to this. Put on your notifications as well so you get an alert anytime I post a video. Uh, I really appreciate the likes and the comments and all that. And that is it for now.